In this video, I'll be going over the game between the Soniqs and TSM on Bank, Playday number 13 of the NA Pro League season. There are 5 hatches that lead into the bottom floor, so the ban of Habana from TSM, a very typical ban. She is the hatch opening operator. Also on the second floor, she can very safely open up some long lines of sight all the way down through the hallway. Then the Soniqs will decide to ban IQ. This is kind of a questionable ban. I thought the game plan from the Soniqs was going to be a lot of runouts from the second floor windows on a second floor defense, but they only played Valkyrie 3 times out of the 5 defensive rounds, and we didn't see them hop out once. Possibly a target ban. Maybe they just think that TSM uses IQ more effectively than they can, and they're going to rely on those intel operators. Could also be used to help with the server execute, since she can see plant denial being thrown at the attackers during plant. Then Mira and Echo, both very typical bans. Might also be the case that they didn't expect TSM to ban Echo, and they thought that their Echo play was stronger than TSM's. From the Soniqs, we see Thermite and Maverick. Heartbreach is very important on a basement defense. Cavatown and Zofia are the 2 meta attacking operators. We see a late 6 from Super from the Thatcher onto the Knock. The reason why I can do this is because TSM isn't bringing Cade to trick the hatches. Or not even trick the hatches, but deny the hatches. So Thatcher not really needed. Doesn't really counter much in the lineup either, except maybe the Pulse. But Knock able to counter the Valkyrie, as well as the Mozzie, since she won't be detected. Pulse is actually a very interesting counter to Knock, since he sees her heartbeat. Not enough people talk about that. On TSM's side, what else do we have? The castle is interesting, most likely going to be a heavy archives teller's roam. And given the utility that the Soniqs have, and just Maverick and Zofia for opening up the armor panels, could actually slow Soniqs' push. I know for a fact that Knock has a Claymore, Cavatow has flashbangs. When it comes to defenses on the basement side of Bank, it all comes down to this one plant spot, and whether or not the defenders can delay the attackers from getting a plant in this spot before time runs out. So a defense that's going to win needs to bring the correct operators for the job, needs to use the utility correctly. So whenever we talk about a basement defense, and this is truly unique, this is really the only site that is considered to be viable in the Pro League map pool at this time, that teams think is the best site, the primary site, but also has this kind of weird quirk where, if you think about it, this plant spot's so strong because of 2 reasons. The first is there's a hatch directly over site, which makes it virtually impossible for defenders to contest inside of CCTV room itself. The other thing is, even if you take a step back, it's very difficult to get an angle with your gun onto this plant spot and counter it that way, or deny the plant that way. So that's why it's so popular. And when we look at the operator selections, we need to think about the time that's going to be wasted by each one of these operators. So Smoke can stall push for 45 seconds. Valkyrie, or any C4 operator, I assign an arbitrary value of 10 seconds, which gives Mozzie and Pulse that similar treatment. And then Castle's kind of an unknown. How long will it take for the Soniqs to get past these barricades? Is that effective or not? So the mark that we're looking for from the Soniqs is 115. If they are able to start baiting utility and that specific plant spot, then the Soniqs are sitting pretty. Reinforcements on the basement look like the CCTV walls, the typical connector red hall, one on lockers. That is 4 reinforcements, and then our very typical soft destruction and rotates between sites. then we need to turn our attention to the upstairs. So I already said that if we see a castle, if we see a Mozzie, very typical to see a heavy Teller's Archives roam. They're going to reinforce the admin hatch and then leave the admin office hatch that would lead down into the basement soft. Reinforcement on the Teller's hatch. Elevators will also be soft. Some soft destruction foot level into Teller's and office hallway. Reinforcement on the open area hatch. This is one of the hardest hatches to open up in the game just because of how congested the area surrounding it is. So if you force Maverick to open that with his blowtorch, it's normally a very ideal situation. We have 2 reinforcements on the Teller's office wall, as well as an armor panel leading into the doorway by the flagpole. A rotation between admin office and archives, and an armor panel on the admin door. And then an armor panel on the archives window door vault prompt, and I believe the even barricaded archives door. Lastly, on blue, the hatch will be reinforced. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we had the other 4 downstairs in the basement. The plan is to have 2 roamers and Tellers and archives, waste as much time as possible up here, potentially even make a play onto blue, or even contest the hatch opening from admin. Since the admin hatch above admin is reinforced, you have a little more flexibility in playing the site. Of course, vertical play very possible in archives and Tellers, but we'll just have to see how the round plays out. So the Soniqs have taken top floor control very quick. We see them opening all the hatches. Castle tries to tear down that barricade there and surprise the knock. They do it in a coordinated peek. So Mozzie and Castle both peek the knock here. Probably a poor usage from Super of utility, considering they were able to know that he was in that position in lobby. But a trade out for the defense there. Losing Castle is not super big since he doesn't actually have any form of denial. We're still looking for that 115 mark in terms of the Soniqs baiting out utility. The Soniqs, meanwhile, have adjusted, and since they know there's a player in Archives Tellers, they're going to pinch onto him. We just saw that Maverick was opening up the hatch above admin and janitor, and that will create a lot of vertical pressure onto him and his position. So they know that he's in Tellers, and they're really collapsing onto him now. He's dead. But at 1:30, the Soniqs are not looking super clean here for their execute. They need to pick up the pace. The 1C4 being taken off the board means that at 1:05, we need to see them baiting utility. They're going to thermite the blue hatch, which is why Pulse and Smoke both rotate out of blue. And because Maverick was required to open up the admin hatch above, he doesn't have, or he used his utility inefficiently and isn't able to open up this admin hatch fully, which would give more coverage of the site and make this execute much easier. At 45 seconds, we're only now opening up the blue wall. This is TSM's to lose, despite the large man disadvantage. The problem is this. Smoke has the utility to delay plant for 45 seconds. But where is Smoke? He is currently watching the main stairs. Poor usage of Smoke as an operator. There is the default cam that gives you coverage of the main stairs. You don't need to dedicate a player there, and also no one's flanking from there right now. Smoke has utility for plant denial first, and then second for reconstruction of the site and soft destruction. But number one is plant denial, and if you don't use his area of effect utility, then there was no reason to bring smoke. You should have brought a mute, because at least you realize you maximize his full value in the first seconds of the round. So the fact that smoke is completely out of position here, most likely called by the team, is a huge mistake. If Pulse wants to win this, he needs to retake vertically, go up marble stairs. It's his best bet. You're not going to be able to brute force your way through a doorway that two attackers are going to be watching or expecting you to rotate from. Once again, we see the knock 6, same explanation. There's not really much utility here except for Maestro that knock could counter, that Thatcher could counter, but knock also counters Maestro in his evil eye. And we have the Zofia, the Maverick, in order to remove those evil eyes as well. Then from TSM, lots of the same faces. A armor panel on the wall closest to square, or window closest to square. That's because you want to give a safe haven for the player impact tricking in the spot. Then square wall will be quad reinforced. A reinforcement on janitor closet. Actually, 2 reinforcements on janitor closet. 1 on the conference room wall. And 2 on the long halls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th reinforcement is in the hallway. And then we also have this barricaded and this castle barricaded, or armor paneled. A lot of the reinforcements are to diminish, and the castle barricade are to diminish specific angles that attackers would be able to get from the eastern side rappels, as well as some from the north, or western side rappels, as long as some through the north. And then this particular one is to stop any kind of coverage from stock trading room and pressure that could be created all the way into sight from the safety of stock. Early pick for TSM, the barricade that Castle had to impact trick just got removed, so a little more dicey to do so. Gotcha underneath sight can make a play here if it's C4. Merc takes the impact trick too narrow, or not narrow enough, and unable to impact trick, decides to make an aggressive play and push the player right by the breach. Of course, there's going to be coverage though for a monkey play like that, and immediately traded. Super on the knock gets super aggressive here. Doesn't really have any support from his teammates, considering Zofia's on marble stairs. We don't even know where Maverick is. So if that works, it's great. If it doesn't, then Maverick's on the bottom floor. If it works though, it's great. If it doesn't, it's kind of a throw.
Neptune's going to refrag at the top of the stairs though, but all of a sudden it's a 1 versus 2 right after that 1 versus 3. They do know that someone is inside of meeting, so this could help out Neptune just a little bit as he does pre-fire into the front office. But again, nobody home just yet.
Bolo there gets caught looking. The fact that Zofia is able to win that gunfight is actually quite impressive, but she's brought it down to a 1v1, and the problem is she continues to play aggressively when she actually has 50 seconds to slow things down and attack this from a less predictable angle. Instead, Mozzie able to immediately refrag. Back to the basement for the defense, but this time we see a 6 from the smoke onto the Warden. I actually think that Jaeger is replaceable in this situation, considering that we're bringing Warden and the attackers aren't bringing any nade operators. Capitao is the most lethal projectile operator in this lineup. So in order to talk about this defense that we are about to see, we need to have an explanation of why it's so easy to clear out from blue and then execute into our default spot. A lot of traits are shared with Oregon Basement. I would guess that if you looked at the operators brought there and compared to the operators brought on Bank Basement, they would be nearly identical. The issue is that for attackers, you have a exterior entrance or entry through sewer. If you open up the server room hatch, you can create tons of vertical pressure into a player who would play behind the server rack. And you can also push down the server room stairs, assuming that you've properly cleared out the second and first floor. You shouldn't feel any contest except inside the zone of server room stairs, which is where Warden and Smoke will generally play. The other thing is that if I open up the CCTV room hatch, then when a defender tries to rotate out of server, I can cut off their rotate and net a freebie. Very difficult to play to hold blue, but teams try to do it. And what they've done in recent history is they'll reinforce the server room hatch. They'll have a player holding the sewer dirt area, and then a Smoke, and now a Warden, holding the server room stairs. The idea being, let's put a close quarter combat operator in Smoke or Warden with their shotgun and SMGs and have them hold this area. The reason why Smoke is preferred in this area is because he's an area of denial operator and can effectively hold down one side with his gas canisters as he's focused on the other push from the server room stairs if this player were to die. But Warden kind of changes the game in the sense that the way that attackers want to safely push into a room is through utility, and Warden counters a lot of the utility that attackers could throw at him in flashbangs. Specifically, if we think about the lineup that we just saw from Soniqs, all they have for lethality is the Capitao and Zafia's launcher, which is probably not going to kill anyone. So as teams open up as the Soniqs open up the server room hatch, remove the player in blue, when their attention switches to pinching the player on server room stairs, with a shotgun looking at one of the entrances and flashbangs hurtling in, Warden or Smoke are still going to most likely be able to take one or two players out just because of how well suited his kit is for this close quarter engagement. And so the ultimate question comes down to this: can your Warden or Smoke hold down the server room stairs for 45 seconds? Because that's what we would expect from a Smoke to be able to do in the position in Red Hall or lockers, throwing the gas canisters onto this default spot. It all comes down to timing, which is also why this is Valkyrie's 10 seconds, Warden needs to be 45 seconds, Maestro, any plant denial operator in Echo or Maestro, I assign 20 seconds, and Pulse is 10 seconds. So we're looking at about 130 being the mark for when we would hope for or 120, sorry, when we would hope the attackers to be able to start using their plant denial. 125, I can't do basic math. Normally you reinforce all the hatches and you turtle down on site. Notice how quickly Maverick is starting to open up the admin hatch. Again, that's so that when the players rotate out of server, you can capitalize and get a freebie. It's especially important too to open up the server room hatch. That applies a ton of pressure onto the player in behind the server rack. So we notice the Jaeger and the Warden both playing in the positions I mentioned. They just open up the blue hatch. 2 firebolts into the server rack. This will cook the player behind that position, and Merc dies. Now we need to transition and remove the player in blue stairs. So they try throwing in the flashbangs. They must think that it's a Smoke. Maybe they don't know how to deal with a Warden. Unclear to me. But Warden's able to net a kill there because of the way that they try to clear out the Warden player. You need to pinch this player since you don't have any lethal utility anymore. And that's what they do. Great job from the Soniqs. At 40 seconds, just opening up the wall, we need to start baiting utility very quickly. We don't have the firebolts either, so we can't use that as a method to plant. I say we, but I mean Soniqs. And I'll mention that Gotcha has the C4 pre-ripped out in order to deny plant without them hearing any sound cue. It just so happens though that Neptunes kill someone behind Valkyrie, it looks like, and that will actually remove the C4 from play. So now TSM gets super desperate and just starts lobbing in both of their denial. Actually, I retract what I said about Neptunes. Some player on coverage shot the C4 out the air, and then Neptune's able to shoot the Maestro in garage. This angle that Maestro's trying to play can actually deny the plant with his gun. It is still not, in my opinion, the safest method to do so, but it looks something like that. Very cheeky angle. Anyways, TSM, because of the peak from Maestro, because of the C4 being shot out in the air, unable to deny the plant there, and they lose. On a basement defense, it's extremely important for both sides, the attackers and defenders, to understand the way that they're going to bait out utility and bring the proper operators to make the timing of the other side more uncomfortable. We go to Teller's office and archives. We have the Mute Mozzie Vigil combo. I think it's one of the cooler ones in Siege. I don't know if it's actually that strong, I just think it's cool. Lots of drone denial. With the IQ band, I think that Valkyrie is a must pick always, especially over Pulse. Reinforcements here look like 2 on the square wall. We had 1 in Janitor, 2 in the long hallway. This is because a player, Bolo, will play an ACOG and will try to contest the lobby entrance as well as the hallway, although this is less viable since there's really no cover in the hallway itself. 5 reinforcements, and also the hatch in hallway, I believe, is reinforced. We have the hatch in Janitor closet opened. Then we need to make our way to the first floor. The Teller's hatch is open. Sometimes teams would throw C4 out onto the wall. That is reinforced because a lot of attacks will try to open up this wall. We have some leg level soft destruction in between Tellers and office hallway. And those are the reinforcements that I spotted. I know that I'm missing 3 or 2. The Soniqs fully committed to a push through lobby here. Bolo tries to contest the repeller there. Not the most advisable. Since the Soniqs only are pushing through the first floor, Bolo is able to get this kill onto the Maverick, though Maverick should have probably won that. They haven't prioritized clearing up top. Capitao is crouch walking to the basement while we have 2 players trying to seemingly push through into sight. This has become extremely disconnected from the Soniqs, and while they're able to get a couple picks here and there, they need to regroup. I don't really know what Slimm's plan is here. There's no droning from the Soniqs either, so they're just kind of face checking everything, and they're doing it still somewhat disconnected. Slevin re-peeks there, which was very silly to do. That was a really poor attack from Soniqs. Second floor, we see the Ash 6th off of. I think the Soniqs are thinking we just beat them twice downstairs, so they're not going to go downstairs again. Let's take them up. They're going to go upstairs. We need Ash in order to remove these castle barricades because those are annoying. Then TSM will do an interesting 6 from the Valkyrie onto the Pulse. Again, IQ's banned, so you bring Valk. Same setup from TSM. We have 2 on the North Rappel and the windows prepped. Huge chance for Castle here to run out. Though he will advise not to. So Capitao is going to flame off the area by the window. They're trying to get Castle off of being able to impact Trick because they're trying to open up the wall with their Thermite. Since impact tricking doesn't have a natural counter, it's important to just push the player off of that position, which of course is what Capital is responsible for doing, and does. But it looks like they were unable to actually open up the wall despite the effort. Down a 2-man advantage, TSM needs to hope that these guys just overpeak, and there it is. He's been a guy that's been a lone soldier for a very long time on this squad and was able to bring Bolo's holding such a long angle. Let's look at that again. That's from front desk. Right, he's here looking all the way into the breach. So he has the advantage when it comes to the attackers peeking in. Able to down Goddess, it looks like, too. Poj is in a rough spot here. Very aggressive with the window player still in that repel. I don't understand how Bolo was able to sit in that front desk position and get a 3 or 4K off of it. It's like they just continued to forget that he existed there and he gunned them all down. TSM still bringing out the castle. I think that you just need to sit on site and use your plant denial utility properly. The vigil for some kind of archives teller's roam as well, more likely than not. By the way, the number that we're looking for here is 105 because of the Valk, the pulse, and the smoke. Or the timestamp, rather.
A little slow in the evolution. Merc getting potentially drawn. I don't know if he knows. Up there, it saw him. I think he knows now. So he's a little caught.
Oh, what are you doing, Merc? No, my friend, you just shot a drone. You don't think anybody's home?
You can't give Super the 1 again.
What Stokes just said was a really strange thing for Merc to do. These roamers that are in Archives Tellers really need to start dropping the hatch once they don't have their buddy to refrag anymore, because they're losing their ones. So the Soniqs are super behind schedule right now. Pojo can deny the plant and is doing so. Great change from TSM. We're finally seeing smoke being used. Instead, Pulse is responsible for calling out anyone on the main stairs, but as I said before, you have a default cam that watches that hallway, so you don't really need a player there, especially when they barricade consistently the door. The other thing to talk about is the way that you should use plant denial. You prioritize throwing the gas canisters first because, number one, you bring smoke for those gas canisters, and you need to realize his full value. Number two, because the gas canisters do chip damage and also stall larger pushes, so it's actually the most ideal form of entry denial. And then the C4s become more and more lethal with all that chip damage. Maestro's Evil Eyes also become more lethal because of the chip damage from the C4s and the gas canisters. So, gas canisters first, C4 second, plant denial third. Lastly, we go in for the guns. On TSM's side, a bit of a risky play here, but we don't see a Maverick because they apparently read into the fact that this will be a second floor defense, though the operators that the Soniqs bring wouldn't really tell me so. We see Jackal being brought instead of Thatcher because there's no denial of hard breach here on Soniqs lineup. And the Buck, just for nades, that's great for the server clear because nades are definitely the better option than flashbangs or Zofia's concussion launcher. Then the pulse onto the Dock 6. Lots of long angles, which is why you probably have these two ACOG operators on a second floor defense, and Castle able to isolate some of those long angles from outside. Crafty stuff from the Soniqs, definitely off meta. They'll reinforce one panel of the hallway and then actually open up the other. This is to give a player less coverage of his back, but also he has a way to contest these repels now. There will be a deployable shield in the position near the elevators. A player will sit here and is able to contest this long hallway. Also, as we mentioned, the repels here. But I would normally rather have my back be covered than be able to play this very aggressively. The conference wall will be reinforced. There's 2 reinforcements on the janitor closet, 1 between conference room and janitor closet, then 2 on the square wall. We can get the castle armor plate barricade done here, and 2 more armor panels on banana. Most importantly though, soft destruction, chest height through the CEO office wall and square. And that's just to make attackers really uncomfortable when they try to entry into the square area. If the attackers are the one peeking, then typically, because the defenders are holding longer lines of sight, they're able to net the kill on the attacker. So something a little different from the Soniqs here. We'll see if it works out, if it dumps TSM. But they're inviting a lot of pressure, a lot of work that the TSM would otherwise have to work to open for free. We're going to make a quick note. So Slebman's playing the position that Bolo was playing in earlier. We have Gompi behind the shield in the hallway, Goddess in the conference room, and Super playing close quarters here in janitor. Because of that north repel, very difficult to sit inside of the box that is CEO, and that's why we don't see a defender there. Also, they invited tons of pressure by opening up that square wall, so really can't sit in there. Slebman got a kill onto Jackal, which means that Jackal peeked into him, so the opening up that wall has worked in their favor. Pojo just able to repel in, and now opening up the wall. No attempt to counter. Of course, that would have been the responsibility for Castle, but he's dead.
To get lit on fire, quite a bit of damage dealt to him, but nothing to be fatal just yet. Going to pop a Toxic Babe over the wall, but definitely not going to help him out just yet.
They're planning, and it looks like the Soniqs have no idea.
Jaeger down. The plant's also going to be confirmed as Poach hops from the window, and it's going to be everyone to their posts as Gotcha gets a triple. It's all left up to Gomchi, and I believe it's going to be
So I think they just realized that they were planning, and then complete chaos just ensued onto the Soniqs. We go to the basement. The Soniqs are bringing your standard operators. The magic number here is going to be, well, 45, 10, 10, 20, which means that we need to start seeing them baiting out utility at 125. And then TSM bringing the nades. I love the nades. I don't understand why teams don't bring nades on bank basement defenses, because there's so many clips. Like every week in our Pro League, there's a clip of some Challenger League team, even a Pro League team, pushing down blue stairs, or trying to push into blue stairs after using a Zofia concussion launcher, and that's it, and a couple flashbangs. Well, it doesn't matter because the smoke, even if he's concussed, still has a shotgun trained at the doorway that you're trying to enter and is going to blow you back. Looks like a heavy turtle defense for the Soniqs. Hatches reinforced, no offsite roam. And at 2 minutes, it looks like the TSM is comfortable with the idea that they have complete control of the second and first floor. So they need to start using their hard breach and opening up the hatches to enable a plant. Because they didn't bring a Maverick, because Hibana's banned, they can only open up 2 hard walls. And they just opened up the hatch that drops into elevator. Let's note that the Soniqs have very little coverage in this backside. All of their focus is into blue. This is a counter to the current blue hold, which is the smoke and pulse hold in blue. Instead of trying to push them, let's just completely avoid them. And that looks like what TSM's going to do. They're most likely going to drop down into elevator, start applying pressure down the marble stairs, and try to get a plant off into lockers rather than pushing your default way in that default plant spot. But based on the way that the Soniqs are moving, it looks like they are cognizant of the change in strategy from TSM, that they've just opened up these 2 hatches and are repositioning closer towards site.
Contested, no one really doing anything about that. That's going to offer a lot of intel on what they could push here. See, for example, just not seeing it. Like, it's still getting there, but Gotcha gets gotted. Bolo gets one in the meantime, though, and that's Slebin down. So Pojo also taking down Super.
He's inside of elevator. Goddess is going to try and get aggressive as the Chief works his way down the staircase. Who is inside of this elevator? It's going to be Pojo. Neptunes finds
a bit of a solo push there from Merc. I'm not really sure why he's pushing down blue when the rest of the team is pushing on the other side of the map.
But there's still a long road ahead of Susquehanna Soniqs. They're planning inside of B. We haven't seen this in so long.
Diffuse is going down, but Valkyrie is able to just peek the player. As I said before, I think it would have been better for Thatcher to be covering that kind of flank from, say, elevator.
Trying to battle their way back. Nitro Cell goes off, but it'll go off to deaf ears. No one going to take any damage. Secondary one goes off as well. And yet again, no damage done. Achieved quite a bit of damage done to him. Bolo's still full health, and we've seen Bolo do a lot of crazy stuff in the past. This is still definitely winnable for both teams.
From the attackers, they probably need to push one side and fully commit to pushing just one player, because you're isolating a 2v1 in that sense, since these 2 defenders are so isolated from one another. Unable to win that one. Buck's able to win his one. In the 1v1, I understand why Buck tries to push the pulse. It's very difficult to win a 1v1 when you haven't planted the diffuser. Typically, the move is to frag out. So really, I don't fault Buck for chasing down pulse in that situation. Though Stokes makes a good point, one method is to bait the defuse, but I would argue that Pulse was convinced that Buck wasn't going to even plant and was simply running away to run away. Ooh, a pre-place from Neptunes. They know that they're going to try to open up that specific wall, so I love this kind of play from the Soniqs. And the reason why they know that they're going to open up that specific wall, this wall, is because there's already soft destruction on this wall. So they give that for free, which means that the priority becomes just the northern wall of square. And why not set up some kind of play with the IQ, the Valkyrie, and a pre-place C4. Great little play from Soniqs.
Size for that. Gomphy playing inside of the hallway, going to dock himself up and rotates away. Probably a smart choice. Yeah. Because it seems that Gotcha does have the hot hand right now as opposed to what he was doing earlier on. Does hear one of the stock windows break. He's ready for the peak though. Gomphy going to get tagged up just a little bit, but nothing that he can't obviously stem back. And he definitely can't stem back that. Gotcha with a double.
Gomphy's super out of position there. He tried to make an aggressive play. If he nests the frag onto the Buck, it's great. But because he doesn't, gets caught out of position trying to rotate back into sight. So the operator that I see that can counter a lot of what Soniqs is bringing is Thatcher. Instead, TSM elects to bring Ashe and Jackal. I think Ashe and Zafi are needed for the castle barricades for the Maestro Evil Eyes, but the Jackal, don't know how useful it's been up to this point. Don't know if it's been even relevant at all. So the reason why Gomphy is able to get those kills is because there's actually foot level soft destruction on the bottom of stock room, and he's able to peek the players as they entry. not only that, actually that might not even be true. That's what I thought I saw, but what I see is Pulse is directly underneath, and more likely than not is relaying the intel that these players are vaulting in.
As Pojo Man falls in tandem. Oh, and the diffuser's all of a sudden down in stock. Gotcha trying to get aggressive. He finds one. That's going to be Slevin. Quite big pick here, but they're going to vacate the premises.
I think the Maestro Slevin was too focused on supporting Mozzie in that situation. So Gotcha able to repel in, potato a couple bullets, but still not a kill.
Definitely not going to give it to Gotcha as he has very low HP, and they really want Bolo for that fragging capability. Concussion goes off, and oh, it's all going to be on the timing here. A frag grenade pours in, but it's not going to find too much. As Gomfi actually on a flank will find one. He finds the second, but no, it's going to be Neptunes actually gets that second kill. Bolo to confirm Gomfi, but he still has...
Nice flank from Gomfi, able to net a 2k. What Soniqs is bringing is they're not bringing a smoke. They have a Valkyrie, a Maestro. Very strange in terms of their lineup. Definitely not the meta strategy. This time TSM bringing the 2 hard breachers, and not bringing Maverick last time was detrimental. Sledge over Buck is the 6 from TSM because of the castle, and those armor panels are difficult to remove without using the grenades, but you would want to use the nades in a different way than removing a castle barricade. Ooh, very interesting. On the first floor, we just saw that the dock was reinforcing the hallway here. So this is going to be a heavy upstairs roam, more likely than not. Or not upstairs, but a first floor roam.
I really can't tell. Yes, hey, guess who and I win.
All right, there you go. You padding your stats.
Yeah, pad my guess who stats.
So TSM, they're smart. What they'll do is they'll open up the hatch directly above Slevin in stock, and I believe that's where Maverick is headed to.
Open area, so that'll give them a little bit of information as opposed to what they're supposed to do in order to handle this situation, because that's what offense is all about: getting information and trying to figure out what your game plan is to counter what the...
Much easier to use vertical play than to try to contest the angle horizontally with an upside down rappel.
What are you doing, my friend?
Not the play.
Oh, Bolo gonna tag on as well. This is soon looking like a TSM round. Oh, Slevin will fall as well. It's all
And hard to tell if they opened up that hatch, what exactly happened there, but the important thing is TSM just killed everyone on the top floor. Not sure where Legion is. Oh, he's holding blue by himself. But the Sonics simply do not have the plant denial now to delay the plant for a minute 20.
Still looking pretty good in this 4v2 here. They just have to make that game plan. They've got so much time left.
Lots of time.
And a lot of drones.
And a lot of drones, exactly, Emzo. That's the key factor here. Well, with all those drones remaining and the timer, you can just take your time, man. Get a drone out, there you go. Run around, you know Super's now here, and he's going to get caught with his pants down once again. Merc as well.
TSM just able to out manpower the Sonics because that roam failed so quickly. And rather than TSM trying to fight the gunfights horizontally, they took to vertical play. So great job from TSM. Achieved. Seriously, one of my favorite players. Let's think. Defensively, Pojo Man continues to struggle on smoke. I mean, I know Pojo Man has some pretty insane clips with smoke, but this isn't the... This is like the 3rd or 4th VOD review we've done, and I've only done 4 or 5 of TSM, where Pojo Man has made a questionable decision as smoke and has 3 gas canisters still in hand. And I'm thinking about that one basement defense where he was positioned on main stairs. Might have been the call from the team to position him there. But as a smoke player, you need to be assertive about the fact that, hey, I haven't used my utility yet, because other players don't know that you haven't used your utility. I mean, they lost the 2 basement defenses, so it's kind of like that's how TSM could improve, is if they used smoke better. I also just don't think that the upstairs realm works for them. I think they can turtle sight. when one player died early, which often happened from TSM in that upstairs teller archives realm, the next player died immediately. And so they were able to always trade the first death, but because then you're on an island by yourself in archives tellers, and there's no drop for you, unable to win the 1vx there, and you just go down an extra man for no reason with very little time wasted. The Soniqs struggled on attacking every site that wasn't basement. I think they lacked a lot of droning because we saw Bolo able to play in the front desk position, net a 4 or 3k in that one spot, and when the attack moved and pushed through a different location through CEO, or not CEO, but meeting, they were still oblivious to the fact that he would be there. So droning needs to happen. Get closer to each other too. And slow down. There was that one round where it was a 1v1. Slebin could have, I think it was Slebin, someone on Soniqs could have clutched it, but decided to continue to aggressively peek. On attack, TSM struggled attacking the basement the first round because they didn't bring the proper operator and Maverick to open up 2 hatches. And that's really all that there is to say about that one attack. Also, Merc went on some solo push that didn't make much sense. I also think on Bank, a lot of people think that Jackal's really strong, but I just don't. He's good on basement attacks, but once you clear the top floor, which you can do so quickly with drones, his scanning doesn't really work anymore because they're going to be all in sight. On the second floor, they're all going to be on the second floor. If you're going to bring a Jackal, then Jackal needs to push underneath and try to isolate the 1v1 or push 2 players down, my recommendation, and get rid of the C4 operator that is more likely than not going to be in archives, tellers, cafeteria, kitchen.